Oh hey, I didn't see you there. And howdy howdy, it's History with Stevens.
Steven.
History with Stevens.
Steven.
Episode 3 is all about the English colonies in North America, more specifically the 13 colonies that would later become the United States. In this episode we'll be looking at the 3 distinct colonial regions. We're going to be going over the geography, the economy, the religion, and the government of each of those colonial regions. The guiding question for this chapter is, what were the similarities and differences among the colonies in North America? Make sure you can point out the similarities and differences among the different colonial regions, and make sure to pay close attention to the geography, the economy, the religion, and the government in each region. Anyways, let's begin. There were multiple reasons settlers established colonies in North America. Some settlers established colonies because they hoped to profit from the resources in North America. Other settlers established colonies so they could practice their religion freely. There was another colony that was established as a refuge for debtors. England supported these colonies because European nations were competing against each other to try to establish colonies in the New World. Under the economic policy of mercantilism, nations tried to gain wealth by controlling trade and establishing colonies. That's why, if you remember from episode 2, many European nations sought to claim land and establish colonies in North America. Eventually, Britain ended up with 13 colonies along the Atlantic Ocean. These colonies had 3 distinct regions: the New England Colonies, the Middle Colonies, and the Southern Colonies. Let's learn a little bit about each region. The New England colonies included Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New Hampshire. The geography of this region made it very difficult to farm. There are cold winters in New England, and the region is very rocky. And if you know anything about farming, you know rocky land is not ideal. However, the western part of these states include heavily forested regions, and along the ocean, there are lots of natural resources that were needed to survive. The economy of New England really centered around jobs like lumbering, fishing, shipbuilding, trade, and even some small farms existed. Most of the settlers who moved to the New England colonies came to North America to seek religious freedom. Most of the people who came to New England were Puritans. Puritans were kind of a break-off of the Church of England. They saw the church as corrupt and decadent, and they sought to purify the religion once again. Of course, the King of England, being the head of the Church of England, didn't particularly care for them. Because of that, they were persecuted and prevented from practicing their religion. Many of them came to New England so they could practice the religion without persecution. The Puritans took the religion very seriously. Church attendance was mandatory, and they would even have people search houses to make sure that nobody was skipping out. And those services could last up to 5 hours. The government was also influenced by the Puritans. In New England, colonists could be put to death for denying the true God. This made New England a theocracy at the time. A theocracy is a government that rules in the name of God. However, despite this, New England colonies did set up representative governments. However, only white land-owning men were able to vote at this time. This didn't include Native Americans, African Americans, women, or even poor white people who did not own land. This was true for all the colonial regions, however, not just New England. And despite this, the New England colonies were far more democratic than England was at the time. The Middle Colonies includes New York, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and the great state of New Jersey. Why is New Jersey great, you might ask? Well, it should be obvious, but the number one reason is that yours truly was born in New Jersey. And you know what they say, you can take the boy out of Jersey, but you can't take the Jersey out of the boy. Wait, what? Nobody says that. Well, I just said it, so obviously somebody says it. Fine. Maybe it'll become a thing though. The geography of the Middle Colonies made it much easier for the settlers to survive. The coastal regions had rich soil for farming and forested areas in the west that provided natural resources. Farming, lumbering, and shipbuilding existed in the Middle Colonies. The jobs were actually very similar to New England colonies, with the main difference being that farming was much more prevalent in the Middle Colonies. Religious life was very different in the Middle Colonies than in the New England colonies. The Middle Colonies were much more diverse. There were multiple religious groups, including Protestants, Catholics, and Quakers. Settlers from France, the Netherlands, Germany, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, Scotland, Ireland, and England moved to the Middle Colonies. The consequence of this was you didn't see religious law being enforced in the government like you did in the New England colonies. Some Middle Colonies, like New York, had British-appointed governors to rule over the colonies. Others were self-governed. The southern colonies included Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. And yes, I said Virginia. Please don't bring up UMBC in the comments. I know it's months later, it happened in March, but it's still too soon. I mean, you had the #1 overall seed, and you lost to a team called the Retrievers. Come on, Tony Bennett, you're better than that. Anyway, back to history. The southern colonial regions included large rivers and vast wetlands. The hot and wet climate was ideal for growing cash crops like tobacco, rice, and cotton. Colonists took advantage of this climate and established large farms called plantations to grow crops. Plantation owners used enslaved Africans and indentured servants to work the fields. Afterwards, they would sell their crops to other colonies and to Europe. Most people in the South practiced some form of Christianity, mostly Protestant. However, you didn't see it reflected in the laws the same way you did in the New England colonies. Most of the southern colonies had governments that were self-governed. Well, that's going to conclude this episode of History Stevens. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, leave a comment in the comments. Peace!
We about to turn it on.